Hey, I'm Brian, and I hear a lot of people asking, what does Lightroom do? Why would you want it? First, let's look at some before and after images, and then we'll dig a little deeper. We're gonna go import. I've already got these imported, but we'll do a little demo here. Some Milky Way stuff. Which also includes some up the cottage. It'll populate the thumbnails. You can make them bigger, smaller, whatever suits your needs. I don't do any pick reject from here. I just import everything. Space is pretty cheap. If I'm importing to somewhere that could be offline, like an external hard drive, or I'm using a laptop and it's a NAS, I'm going to want to build smart previews so that I can edit while the store is offline, and export up to a certain size, which we can change later. And if I have my presets all set, I can apply them on import, including metadata, my website, who the photographer was, etc. Okay, so these have all been imported. They're sorted by date. But now what you'll see here, if I click on the top level folder, it shows me all the photos. Now say the fireworks, let's go one, 2. Once these are all collected, I can just go to add a new collection called fireworks. Include selected photos. And if I had Lightroom Mobile enabled, I would sync to it as well. Boom. So now, even though these are taken on different dates and are in different folders, they're all visible in this collection. You can have smart collections, colored red, 5 stars, past month, that's just a couple days ago, recently modified, so photos you've edited recently, and without keywords, so you can go through and update your keywording appropriately. Okay. My library view, let's pick a specific folder. You know what, I'll work on everything, just in case I want to jump around. But you can jump down by date. I can filter really quick by file name, which is handy. You're looking for a panorama you just did, or HDR. Attributes, you can flag by colors. I'll typically filter to red when I'm done my edits, and I can export all the red photos quite easily. By metadata, sort by just camera, lenses, among other things. Shutter speed, did the flash go off, focal length, and of course no filter, show me everything. Or do some quick tagging. You can even do quick adjustments. Let's pick on Haley. Oop, now I've tagged her. Fix that later. Always return your tool. Okay, so let's pick on Haley. And we can do some exposure. Too far. Give this to be a full stop, and that'll be a third of a stop. You can auto tone from here. I find it typically goes too bright, but you may get the rest of what you like out of it. Anytime if you need to find a photo for some reason, you can right click it, say show in Explorer, it'll take you right to it. Creating a panorama is as easy as selecting your images. These are all handheld, and saying photo merge panorama. Through the magic of waiting, your panorama will be generated. There we go. I have auto crop on. Let's see how I did. Not bad for handheld. Not bad at all. Auto select projection. If the things don't look quite right, you can try and pick a different one. We won't get into that too much. The same goes for HDR. Select your exposures. And actually, okay, this one's a little bit off. So let's change to survey view. See, the perspective is a little different. So this is gonna fail or merge. Got these three guys. Photo merge HDR. Let's let it auto tone. Boom. And that generated this guy right here. Another beautiful tool down in lens corrections here. On the basic tab, you have your uprights. I'm going to do auto because that works quite well for this image. But you can also do different. Well, that's definitely upright. And there are manual distortion tools as well. That's basically what a full upright did. You can even rotate a bit. Scale the image. Change the aspect ratio. And vignette. Dark. Bright. Back to our library. I've got some images that have been picked and some that have been rejected. I can filter by just my picks. Or by my rejects. And while I'm working through my images, if I have auto advance turned on, go here, first image, and go pick, reject, pick, reject, pick, reject, pick, reject, pick, and it'll automatically advance me all the way through until I've done them all. I prefer to do that in Lightroom Mobile, but it's one of the tools. Okay, over to our develop module. Okay, I have a brand new image straight off my camera. What I'm going to do first, and I usually do this on import, apply my lens corrections, fix any distortion or vignetting. If your lens isn't found automatically, you can probably scroll through the list and find it. I've got quite a selection, and it's updated all the time. Next thing I do, if your camera is supported, you'll have different profiles. Even just going from Adobe standard to camera standard usually yields some sort of improvement. You can also use the creative styles in your camera. That's a little too contrasty, so maybe I want to pull that down. Editing from here is very quick. I'm going to bring my exposure up or down. And anytime I want to reset, I can just double click. It's the same for all the sliders. My highlights are a little too bright. I don't want the shadow detail too much. Okay, but now my yellow's too intense. Go down to the HSL. Change the saturation of my yellows and my oranges. Good. I can also adjust the hue. So I want my oranges to be more red. All very quickly. And another easy way to do this is to grab this tool, pick the area you want, and just drag the mouse up and down. Easy. And again, reset. And any section that you're working on can be turned off. Cropping. We've already done some here. One big thing we can do. Let's mess this up. Okay, it's obviously quite angled. Auto will attempt to find your horizon and auto level your image. Aspect ratios are all right here. So I do an 8x10. I know I've got to stick within this ratio. The heal tool, these look like water spots down here. Click. You can clone as well. For this I want to heal. I just adjust the size with my mouse. Click. It's going to automatically select and do the heal. Turn that off. It's not too bad. If I wasn't happy, I can click this guy and drag the source over to here. Call it a day. Bang. Bang. Not bad. See if I can find any spots on my lens. Right there. See? Got that guy. And now this guy. Done. Go back before we started. All those little spots come back. At any time in the history, if you like where you are, you can save a snapshot. Default is the date and time. I'm going to go with test 1, very descriptive. Just now when I make a fool of myself, instead of having to go, oh, I was down here somewhere, I can just click on this. Back we go. Red eye correction. Can't do any pet eye, I don't think. This won't work very well because his eyes aren't actually red. Click the red eye tool, and I just click on the and drag. Boom. And all that does is black it out. It's not that sophisticated. It does the same thing with pet eye. Gradient tool. Let's go over here. Okay, so say I want to bring up the detail here, although I quite like the contrast here. Make a gradient. I keep my default exposure pretty high so I can see where I'm working. Regardless of what tool I want to use. So now I can crank that however I need it. Or in this case, maybe pull it down. If I want to just bring up the shadows. Down the shadows, get more of a reset. Radial filter works exactly as you'd expect. You can invert it. Maybe we'll just be really subtle. A little bit of sun behind the church there. Done. And of course the brush tool. So come all across here. Right now it's bringing my exposure up, which is not what I'm after. But I may bring that down and then go with some saturation. Maybe I want to dehaze. In this case it's going to mess up my skyline there. In both develop and the library we have our histogram up here, and as you see the arrows, so I got my exposure here, I can actually drag and increase my exposure right in the histogram. I'll bring my shadows up, shadows down. And you can see it manipulating the sliders down below. One great thing when you're changing these sliders, if you hold Alt, you can see when you start to clip things and lose detail. There we go. We're pretty close to clipping on our stuff here. So I'm gonna hold Alt, and I'm gonna bring up my highlights, and that's just starting to clip. All my detail is lost there. There is still detail there. If I bring my, there we go. Gone. So all you can do is hold Alt. You'll start to see where you're blowing out your highlights or your shadows. Now we have a pretty bright image here. Let me bring the exposure down, see if we can. There we go. Okay, some blacks. Shadows. Under here is just black. Now in this case that's a literal shadow, so I may not care. But once we start doing this, we lost all this detail here. Again, she's the focus. Maybe you don't care. You can see my little thumbnail in the top left changing while I do this. So you do have a visual representation if you'd like. Another handy time saver. You can sync, first of all. So I can basically paste settings from one image to another. One easy way, let's say I've gone and brought this down. Okay. You know what, we'll give it some saturation too. Why not? There, lovely. Now I'm in the next image, I can hit previous, and it copies those settings. So if you're editing similar images, it'll be very helpful. Now this one here, little shot of the Milky Way. What I can do, right click, develop settings, copy, and it'll give me a dialog asking me what settings I want to copy. Now, they may all be star shots, but they probably don't all need the same crop or spot removal. I did use the same lens, and pretty much everything else is going to be okay. I will get rid of any local adjustments because a graduated filter, again, only good for a specific image. Paste. Gives you a good starting point at the very least. Now this is one where I might want to use my own graduated filter. Just to match things up a bit. So doing that to every image wouldn't make sense because the angle wouldn't be correct. Okay, this image has been played with a little bit, but our white balance hasn't been done. He's got a little bit of purple and blue going on. I happen to like that. I typically leave it, but you can correct for it. You grab your white balance tool and click on neutral. This mic stand was gray at one point. So by selecting that, it rebalances the image. You'll see these guys change as I go back and forth. We were at 3000K plus 25. Now we're at negative 55, 2850. If you need to round trip something into Photoshop, edit in Photoshop. Just gonna launch on my other screen. Apologize. Actually, let's make a change to this. Make a new layer and just draw with the brush. Sorry, it's set to 1% flow. Let's make it so you can see it. Save. The DNG changes to PSD. And what we will see in Lightroom they get added in a stack. Here's my PSD file. I can continue to make my edits from here. This is full 16-bit data. Ah, here we go. Let's do the noise reduction again. I feel like I'm picking on that guy. Let's check these people. There we go. Now I tend to use Define, part of the Nick collection by, I guess Google owns it now. But let's just jump it up a bit. Go before and after. Quite jagged, nasty. Smooths it out, but it also muddies it a little bit. For our purposes, it's probably more than good enough. He's pretty sharp anyway. And now I want to export. Let's go with all the red ones. Oh. Get a quick view and see. I know I wanted the drummer meal. Boom. Just hit 6. I can flag him red. All your options are in here, of course. So, everyone who's red, select everything, file, export. My dialog's on the other screen. Okay, I want to go choose the folder later. If I'm saving a preset, that way it'll prompt the user. I'm going to say a specific folder, and you can just browse to it, or if you've used something recently, it'll be there. Add a subfolder, call it demo export. You can re-add them to the catalog. If there are existing files, overwrite, ask me what to do. You can rename. Change the case of the extension for some reason. So change your image format, JPEG quality, color space. You can have it limit the file size if you're in a pinch. Resize for Facebook, as the case may be. Right now I'm exporting full size, full quality. Back it off and bring the size down to save some space. Sharpen for digital or for printing, including metadata. You just do copyright. If you have a watermark, you can have it overlay on all the images automatically. After export, do nothing. I like show and explore. This reminds me it's done, and maybe I need to send off the file somewhere. That's all there is to basic editing. That's what Lightroom is.